All right, hey y'all, it's week 26. Number one, find the sum of 6 and 2/3 and 3 and 3/4. We have to get common denominator, so that gives me 6 and 8/12 plus 3 and 6/12 gives me 9 and 14/12. 14/12 is an improper fraction, so that's another whole. So I add that to 9, that gives me 10 and 2/12, and then I reduce it to 10 and 1/6. Find the difference. So I didn't have to find the common denominator this time because I already had it here. So all I did was set up my problem and subtract, and it gave me 3 and 2/12, which is 3 and 1/6. Number two, Mom made 60 cookies. 1/5 of the cookies were oatmeal. So I wrote out oatmeal, and I tried to figure out what 1/5 of 60 would be. So I just took 60 and multiplied it times a fifth, and that gave me 12 cookies. So that was 60 minus 12, and then I had 48 left. Okay. Now it says half of the remaining cookies, so half of the 48 is 24, were chocolate chips. So there's half of the 28, it's 24. So 60 minus 12 minus 24 so far are the cookies that I have left. So I have 24 cookies left over now, because I took half of the remaining, so 24 were chocolate chips, so I have 24 left. A third of those 24 cookies are toffee, so I'm going to take 24 and multiply it by a third. That gives me 8 cookies. So I've used 12 cookies, 24 cookies, and 8 cookies, which gives me a total of 44 cookies that I've used. The rest of the cookies are pecan snaps, so I took 60 and subtracted from the cookies that I already used, and that gave me 16 cookies left. So I had 16 left for the pecan snaps. Okay, number 3, create a model. 5, 6, so I start with my columns first, and then 2/3 are my rows, so I shaded in 2 rows. My overlapping, I have 10 over 18. No, you do not need to reduce that one. Number 4, Cake Boss is using 2 1/4 cups of cream cheese. He's making 9 cheesecakes, so each recipe calls for that. So what I do, I multiply 2 1/4 times 9. Remember, I have to make this an improper fraction, so that gives me 81 over 4. 4 divided into 81 is 20 1/4, so 20 1/4 cups of cream cheese. All right, first 6 multiples of 6 are 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36. First 6 multiples of 9 are 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54. So my common multiples are 18 and 36, and for 6 and 9. And then what is the least common multiple? My least common multiple is 18. Day 2, write 9 and 2/7 as an improper fraction, so I multiply. 9 times 7 is 63, plus 2 is 65 over 7. Write 4 divided by 9 as a fraction. That looks like a plus. Let me zoom in just a little bit and tune that. Okay, so 4 divided by 9 is written as 4 over 9. Write 10 over 8 as a mixed number. So I divide. 8 can go into 10 one time with 2/8 left over, or I can reduce it to 1 1/4. Number 2, the weight of bag A is 2.5 times greater than the weight of bag B. The bag B weighs 8 pounds. So what's 2.5 times more than 8 would be 20. So it weighs 20 pounds, and that's a L. That's not 201. That's 20 pounds. LDS. All right, fact families, our favorite. So if I have 2 factors here, this is a factor and this is a factor, I get a product. Well, I don't know this factor, so now I'm going to make this into a division problem, just following same as fact families. I'm going to bring my 1 over here and divide by one of my previous factors, which is 5/8, to find my other factor, because these 2 should multiply to equal this, or you divide by this to equal this, or divide by this to equal this. Okay, so I took 1 and divided it by 5/8, and remember, keep, change, flip. So I keep 1, I flip 5 over 8 to 8 over 5, and that gives me 8 over 5 again, which is 1 3/5. So then I checked it. Remember, I have to make this improper fraction. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8, so that gives me 8/5. Now I'm going to multiply it times 5/8 to see if I get 1. So 8 times 5 is 40, 8 times 5 is 40, so 40 over 40 equals 1, and that checks out. Okay. 3/4 times W equals 12/16. This is exactly like the one we just did. I'm going to take my previous product, now I'm going to make it a dividend, and I'm going to divide it by one of my previous factors, which is 3/4, to figure out my other factor. So I divide by making a keep, change, flip. I keep 12/16. I flip 3/4 to 4 over 3. Now I multiply 48 on this side, and I get 48 on that side. So what do I get? Again, W equals 1. Okay. Let's see. Let's go over here to the table. All right, guys. Now, I know this is tempting to say, well, what's half of 16? And think, oh, 16 divided by 1/2 gives me 8. Okay? But that's not true. You're really having 16. So how many pieces would you get if if each one was divided into half? So I have 1, and if I divide it into half, now I have 2. So I'm really doubling 16 because I'm taking all of the pieces of 16 and I'm making an extra piece for each one piece. So 16 divided by 1/2 equals 32. Now, how would that work if I were looking at it as an equation? So 16 divided by 1/2, remember it's the same as keep, change, flip. So I'm going to change my sign to multiply, and now this flips to 2 over 1. So this is 16 times 2, which is 32. So that's why with each one of these, this number is doubling. So if x equals y divided by 1/2, then in this case, x equals 32 equals 24, 40, 2, 16, and 10. All right, n equals 1/6, so then I just plug it in. 4 times 1/6 gives me, what did I get? This is 4 over 1, so my 6 stays the same. 4 over 6 all over again, and I can reduce it, and it becomes 2/3. Okay, same thing here. I take n equals 1/6. I divide it by 4 divided by n, so I take 4 over 1, change my sign, and then flip my fraction from 1/6 to 6 over 1 because I'm doing reciprocal. So that gives me 24 over 1, which is 24. Day 3, I have my grid. Remember, this is my first factor, so I had 5/10 to represent my first factor. My second factor is anything that falls within this this line, and I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows. So 8/10 is my second factor. So 5/10 times 8/10. And then whatever overlapped, which is, this is my overlapping section, there's 40 of those because I have 5 across and 8 down. 5 times 8 is 40. So I have 40 hundredths. Number 2, Jerry's print shop rents computers at $2 for every 1/6 of an hour. Dana rents a computer for 3/6, so that's 2 times 3, which will give me $6 for that day. And then on Wednesday, on Thursday, another 2, so 2 times 2 would be 4. Okay, so that's how much she spent, and she pays the rental using a $10 bill. Well, she spent $10. So how much change would she receive? Well, she wouldn't get any change back because she spent all of that $10 on time. All right, complete the following mental math pattern. 79 hundredths times 1/10 is 7 9/10 times 100 is 79 hundredths, and times 1,000th would be 79 thousandths. 79 divided by 1/10, remember this is the same as times 10. So what's 79 times 10? It would be 790. This would be the same as times 100, right? So I get 7,900. And then this would be the same as 79 times 1,000. So it would get 79 thousandths. What do you notice? You should be able to spot reciprocal properties here. Or reciprocal relationships, I should say. What is the closest estimated product for 3/4 of 42. Well, 42 looks an awful lot close to 40, okay? So if I'm multiplying, because it says estimated product, so that definitely tells me multiply, or 3/4 of 42 definitely tells me that I would be multiplying, so it would be 40 times 3/4. Well, I know that 3 times 4 is going to be 12, right? So I would have like 12 over 4. 12 over 4 would be 3. But remember, I had an extra 0 here. So I would add that extra 0 there because that would be 120. This would be 3 times 40, not 3 times 4 like we did with the 12. So now I need to put my 0 back. I put it back in the answer, and that's 30. Right? What a fraction represents division. Which statement below is true? Remember, this is the cowboy, this is the horse. The cowboy rides the horse, and there's the horse. So 6 over 8 would be 6 divided by 8. Oh, I didn't do my evaluate problem. I'm sure y'all can do that one. What would I do first? I would solve my exponent inside. 3 times 3 is 9, right? Okay, so then I have solve my innermost first. So 9 plus 2 would be 11, and then I would rewrite everything else around it, and I would solve my next set of parentheses, which would be 4 times 11. Why? Because there's no sign there, so that would be 44. So now I'm left with nothing left but addition and subtraction, and I would solve that from left to right. Okay, so I would take 27 and I would subtract it from 13, and that would leave me with 14. So this became 14 plus 44 minus 6. Okay, and then I would add 14 to 44, and that would leave me with 58 minus 6. And that would leave me with 52. Okay? All right, number 1, day 4, Susie baked a loaf of banana bread. She took half of the loaf to school. So I split the loaf in half. This is how much she took to school, this half right here. She wanted to share equally among 6 friends. So I split this section into 6. What fraction of the loaf? Well, the loaf is a whole, so I finish out the rest of the loaf, and I also divide it into 6. And then I have to separate to see how many pieces each one would represent. Well, each part is 1/12 of a loaf. So how much would each friend get? They would each only receive 1/12 of a loaf. Solve for n. Again, this is fact families. I just grab my product, 504, and slide it over, and now it becomes my dividend, and divide it by the first factor, which is 36. So 504 divided by 36 equals 14. Same thing here. I grab my previous product. Now it becomes my, well, this is division. So these two factors, because if I multiply them, it's going to equal this. So now I just take 73 and I multiply it times 2.5, and that gave me 182 and 5/10. So 182 and 5/10 divided by 2 and 5/10 would equal 73. All right, last one. Last 2, 3, whatever, however many there are for this day. Okay, so it is 4/5 of a mile from Jessica's house to Isabella's house. Jessica walked half of a mile. How much further does she have to walk? Well, what's 4/5 minus a half? I remake this so that I can have common denominators, and that gives me 3/10 left. So she walked 5/10 of 8/10, so 3/10 of a mile is left. Number 4, which number sentence shows the way to multiply? So this is distributive property. I find 2/10 plus 5/100 would equal 25/100. So that's the only thing that I'm looking for, is who set it up correctly and multiply it by the same factor. So this is 2/10, this is 5/100. I'm adding in the middle, and I'm multiplying times 7/10 on both sides. So B is the correct answer. All right, at the bottom, if S equals 7, 56 divided by 7 is 8, plus 9 is 17. 56 divided by 4 is 14, plus 9 is 23. Well, what happens if it's 16? Well, that gives me 3.5, and 3.5 plus 9 is 12.5. Have a good evening.
What was that? Mom? Mom?